Hello, Texas listeners, and welcome to another Fiesty Friday, where I go through kind of more job related social media and discuss some of the advice that I find. Today, we're going to be going through some LinkedIn posts. I'm not going to include who they're from. I ultimately don't want to start any fights or anything like that. I'm just here to give advice from my perspective as a software engineer who did successfully break into industry. So, first post I want to talk about is somebody saying engineers who are currently looking for work or interviewing, start studying for the coding interviews now with LeetCode. So, yes and no. If you're applying places and you're not having much luck, LeetCode isn't going to help you get a job. So, I would say make sure that you're prioritizing your resume being on point first. But from there, starting with a problem here or there and spreading out, learning and reviewing how to do interviews is way better than cramming. It is a learned skill. It is a different skill than generally writing normal code. Interviewing in tech is very weird and very different. And so it is helpful to prepare a bit, but a lot of people who I've met and interacted with kind of wind up getting a little carried away with preparing for LeetCode before they're even actually have a resume who's going to get them to an interview. And LeetCode isn't going to get you to the interview. So you want to make sure that you're getting the interview as well. So just make sure that you're paying attention to that, but preparing early isn't a bad thing. So this next one I'm going to mention because it makes me happy. It's basically somebody saying that they basically take medication for depression and ADHD, and that that's really important, and that so many people are really judgmental and stigmatizing about that within the workspaces. And I definitely can feel that. I personally have anxiety and depression. And so I'm on anti-anxiety meds. I'm on antidepressants. And the thing is, especially as a woman in tech, that a lot of the guys historically have said that women have disproportionate amounts of anxiety within tech because we're just not cut out for this industry. Whereas that's not the cause of anxiety for most of us. It's often people like that, or just the fact that we're expected to have so much in line. There's so much that we're just expected to shoulder. And I didn't come from the best background on the face of the earth. And you know what? I'm also in weekly therapy. And if somebody tries to belittle me for that, at the end of the day, I'm doing great in life. I've had a lot of struggles and I'm doing great. But I do think that it's an important conversation because especially people who are coming from backgrounds of struggling with their mental health or struggling with their health or having disabilities and bringing into tech, the stigma is so profound because the hustle culture is generally so profound. And the thing is, I also have endometriosis. There's days where, man, I'm in tears due to pain. And it honestly, I'm not going to say it makes me a better engineer, but at the same time, it doesn't make me a worse one. And it makes me really able to appreciate just how hard it is to actually be successful at what I'm doing. So I love when people are being really honest about, coming from a different background, and having pieces of themselves that maybe aren't as represented because it's so important. Okay, so this next one that I'm going to talk about is from a recruiter at Google. And he says, networking is a huge part of the job search process, but the approach to it is completely counterintuitive to what most of us think. Here's what a mentor shared with me recently. Networking is about being interested more than interesting. Networking is a long-term relationship, not a short-term transaction. Networking is about how much we can give versus how much we can get. Networking is general interest and not superficial acknowledgement. And hey, it's a great weekend to start. Honestly, I cannot agree more. I especially when going to Grace Hopper and preparing for Grace Hopper, I had started doing advice post for the first time. And that was kind of the first time that I really started to see that there's a lot of people who think that networking is just focused on completely about themselves. And I like to think of networking as kind of building work friends, even if you don't work for the same companies. And, maybe some day down the road, you guys will help each other get jobs, but like that shouldn't be the focus. The focus should be, what can you learn from each other? How can you grow from each other? Much like a friendship. And so often networking does wind up just being a me. So I'm really glad to see, especially somebody with a title like recruiter at Google, where a lot of people will listen to them saying that that's not the best way to go about it. Let's see. We have people, the general expectation of people looking for jobs. The job market isn't super easy right now. But there's also people who are actively saying that they have jobs at their companies. Oh no. A LinkedIn influencer, my least favorite thing. So many of them say so little with so many words. Okay. So this person posted a video of a 2-year-old doing math, theoretically a 2-year-old. I'm doubting that child is 2. My first job was at a daycare, so I'm decently good at being aware of ages. Some 2-year-olds can stretch well beyond expectations. This 2-year-old is an example with his amazing math skills. 2-year-olds are just beginning to learn math concepts, but they can learn a lot in a short period of time. Here's some math skills that 2-year-olds can learn. Counting. 2-year-olds can learn to count up to 10, and some may be able to count higher. One-to-one correspondence. This is an understanding that each number corresponds to one object. 2-year-olds can learn to match objects to numbers and that they can learn to count objects accurately. Sorting and classifying. 2-year-olds can learn to sort and classify objects by size, color, shape, and other properties. So basically, this person is showing a video of a 2-year-old doing like multiplication theoretically, but then their post has nothing to do with it. Very classic LinkedIn, quite frankly. To be like, oh, look at this 2-year-old doing what's beyond expectations, and then not actually talking about it. I have an ad for Harvard's CS50. Love it. If you need reinforcing, I highly recommend getting on edX and finding Harvard CS50. It is just one of the best classes. Oh, somebody talking about what to wear in an interview. So here's the thing. It depends on what job you're looking for. And also the company. A lot of people say, dress for the job that you want. And okay, that's a nice theory. It's not that simple, but that's a nice theory. If I continue that theory though, then I go, well, my dream job is to be CEO of Google or Apple. What does Sundar Pichai wear? Jeans and a t-shirt. Cool. So I can wear jeans and a t-shirt and I'm dressing for the job I want. And the thing is that in tech, dressing for interviews is generally pretty informal. So it isn't this, dress in a suit and tie. I have found, having interviewed for tech roles at a few finance places, that they're generally a little more formal. But for the most part, most of tech, jeans and a t-shirt is perfectly acceptable for an interview. When they say dress what you're comfortable in, actually dress what you're. And like Amazon, when I interviewed with them a few years ago, they told me in one of their emails that basically my interviewer might be in a hoodie and jeans. And so like, if I'm comfortable in a hoodie and jeans, wear a hoodie and jeans. And I loved that they were really, really clear on that they really meant it when they said dress in whatever was comfortable for me. But if you're getting ready for a tech interview, also, if you're unsure, just ask your recruiter. They're supposed to be there to help you. A lot of recruiters, from what I've heard, do get paid bonuses for the number of their recruits who get hired. And so while they can't necessarily influence the hire decision, they're not going to give you bad advice because it doesn't benefit them either. And even if they don't get a bonus, promise for you getting hired, there's no reason that they would lie. There's really no purpose to that. So I definitely say casual is better. And then when in doubt, ask your recruiter. In general, West Coast is more casual than East Coast. So if a company is based on the West Coast, you can guess that their definition of like business casual is going to be a little different. People don't leave bad jobs. They leave because of bad bosses, poor management who don't appreciate their value. I've seen this a lot of places. I do think it's generally true, but the question is, what do they then define as a bad job? Because I would say a bad boss does make your job a bad job. Poor management does make your job a bad job. That I think it's like witty and fun, but simultaneously like, what are you actually saying here? Which is honestly, unfortunately, one of my big kind of things with a lot of people on LinkedIn is that they'll give you advice that what are you supposed to do with it? So that is one thing is just like ask yourself, like, how do you apply advice when you see advice online? Especially from people who say that they're experts. So here's another post. I've noticed over the last few weeks that people I admire have two things in common. They often, 1, say, I don't know. 2, listen. There's so much to learn in our jobs and really the world for that matter. And it makes it hard to have an informed opinion about absolutely everything. Being honest and humble enough to say, I don't know, but I'd love to learn more is a phrase that opens up the conversation for everyone. It's amazing what happens when we learn from folks around us with more experience, more insight, and more knowledge. And the interesting thing is that this can actually be a strength, not a weakness. All of a sudden, we get to learn something new and connect with someone because we listen to them. It's a win-win. I'm learning to use these phrases more and more every day. I definitely agree. The wisest people I know listen all the time, and are willing to say, I don't know. And I think that it's really important to be humble enough to say, I don't know, and to be willing to learn. Simply saying you don't know isn't good enough in and of itself. You do need to back it up with being willing to learn, but it's so powerful to not need to be the expert all the time. And also a lot of the time, the people who are the quietest, like when they say things, like their words are so meaningful. I admire them a lot. I definitely just, it's such a good skill to practice saying less and listening more in general. Ooh, this one's interesting. How I got my first job in machine learning. Me, can I switch from software engineering to ML? My VP, no. Me, why not? VP, not enough experience. Me, I have 2 years sweet experience and 6 months of ML courses, so I can help the ML team deploy their models. VP, not enough. After 4 months of being told no. Me, so can I switch? VP, sighing, maybe a 3-month apprenticeship. Me, deal. And the rest was history. Looking back, I was ultimately successful because I leveraged my uniqueness. I got the job by bringing something new to the ML team and solving a problem they had, model deployment. I was specific. I knew what they wanted and why I wanted it, and I made it abundantly clear. I never let my intensity waver. Even when I was feeling rejected and hopeless, I never let it show. I made it clear that I was never going to stop trying. So, I, in general, think that this is pretty helpful. I would say that I think that to a certain degree, like if you're interested in something kind of more niche, like machine learning, it's helpful to also figure out how your company feels about people moving into those jobs. Because every company has their own culture and there's pros and cons to that. And so like at this person, it sounds like they were at a company that was pretty strong in people stay in their lanes kind of mentality, whereas I work at Boeing, and Boeing does not feel that way. Boeing is very much a come and learn kind of mentality. And so like my manager one day came in to a conference room and said, who wants to learn some machine learning work? We have a machine learning team who needs some help. And 3 of us with minimal background, I have the most background of the 3 of us, which isn't much. 3 of us with minimal background said, sure, I'm willing to learn. And so we got transferred largely to working on machine learning. And so one thing that I would say is helpful as well is if you're really passionate about something, I don't necessarily think that if your company continues to tell you no for months on end, I'd consider looking elsewhere and seeing if somebody else will give you that opportunity, because you have to watch out for your own career. I definitely think that is true in this post, that this person did look out for their own career. But like, at what point would enough have been enough? Were they comfortable staying a SWE forever if they continue to get told no? Because the reality is that was a non-zero possibility. 4 months of being told no is a decently long period of time for somebody to stick with that. And so my one piece of advice would just be make sure that you're watching out for yourself on that front. But being persistent is super helpful. I definitely think that leveraging your uniqueness is super important to breaking into especially niche roles. I personally, in general, at this point, there's a lot of new grads in computer science or software engineering. And so being unique somehow is super, super helpful. So I, for instance, will kind of focus in on the fact of I am really good at cybersecurity and software and decently good at machine learning at this point. And what I won't tell companies is I know that I'm not the best software engineer they're going to hire. I'm also not the best at security. And I'm surely not the best at machine learning. But if you need somebody with overlap, I'm probably one of the best people for my price tag in all 3. And so knowing what makes you unique and looking for how you can leverage that for the company is really, really helpful. And yeah, never letting your intensity waver. Like I said, I don't know if I would have stuck around to be told, no for 4 months, but I do think that you do have to have real commitment to it. Like if you say that you want something, you're the one who has to be the one who makes your career what it is. You have to decide that path. And then you have to make sure that you're getting what you need. But in general, I do really like that. Goodness. So many company advertisements. Oofed. Yeah, this is a good one. Basically, this person posted about how a job was listed as being remote, but they must reside in the area of the office, and they will be required to come into office on an as-needed basis. And basically, that people who are searching for remote jobs, this is listed as a remote job, when in reality, the text of the job does not qualify as a remote job. It doesn't matter if you can be at home most of the time. If you need to live close enough to come on an as needed basis, I would qualify that as a hybrid job. And I completely agree with that. And I also think that to say that I must reside in the area of the city that this job is in, that's how close to that city do you want me to reside in? So, those are the things that I definitely can agree with as not the right move if you're a recruiter. It's better to be upfront with people than to kind of make it seem like a job is different than what it is. Just be honest. I'm just going to include a shout out. Lee McKeeman. God, I am so sorry. I'm super dyslexic. I cannot read to save my life most of the time. He's one of my favorite people on LinkedIn. He has no idea who I am, but I follow him. He's a staff software engineer at Google, and he's one of the people who just like talks about what it's like to have some of the experiences that he's had, and I love it. He's just scrolling through, seeing some of his posts. I love it. So going back to what I was doing, this person posted 99% of LinkedIn profiles I see don't clearly show me who you are, where you came from, how you got there. Too much showing off, not enough human. So here's the thing on LinkedIn. Companies are on there. I am not going to be 100% human when a company potentially is going to see it, when it's right. One of the things that I'm literally including in my job applications, quite frankly, that's asking for a level of vulnerability that just unfortunately isn't likely going to occur because it's really high risk. If it's not high risk, it at least feels high risk because most of us don't have insight into what recruiting actually looks like. So I don't know how deep into my LinkedIn posts and comments somebody's going if I include my LinkedIn on my application. So I definitely think that some people aren't being human at all. And I think that that's important, but I definitely don't think that we're all going to show who we are completely as a person. Another one of these. Beware of suspicious job offers on LinkedIn. I recently received a message that left me both concerned and skeptical, and I felt the need to share it with all of you. I received an unsolicited job offer that seemed too good to be true. The message was well crafted and appeared to be from an individual claiming to be a professional in the field of instructor design and art collections and a fundraising influence for reputable charity organizations. The offer included descriptions of a personal assistant role, flexible hours, and a seemingly generous salary. It also mentioned receiving payments through certified bank checks, which raised the red flag. Let me break it down. 1, the job offer came out of the blue without any prior contact. 2, the promise of high pay for minimal work seemed unrealistic. 3, the method of payment through certified bank checks is unusual. 4, there were noticeable grammatical errors in the message, which is often a sign of a scam. 5, be aware of reshipping scams. If a job involves receiving and forwarding packages, it may be part of a reshipping scam, and you could unknowingly become involved in illegal activities. This kind of message set off alarm bells, and we need to be more cautious about such offers. They could be potential scams or phishing attempts to steal personal information or money. Have you ever received similar messages? If so, please share your experience. It's essential to maintain a vigilant and ethical presence on LinkedIn, where many professionals connect and build their careers. Let's look out for one another and question the ethics behind such offers. Remember, if something seems too good to be true, it probably is. Always verify the legitimacy of every job offer, especially when it arrives unexpectedly. So, unfortunately, one of the things that I have seen an increase in, courtesy of the job market kind of being bad, is people creating fake job scams. So this one's a little bit more obvious than a lot of the ones that I've read about, but I've read people seemingly from legit companies that do exist in the tech space reach out to them, do phone interviews, make it seem super legit. And then basically they realized that it was a scam when they had a company ask them to pay for shipping for their work laptop. And no reputable company would ever do that. But it's definitely important to be super, super cautious about any job communications that you're having, especially on LinkedIn these days, because a lot of people are scamming on LinkedIn because unfortunately, when people are desperate, they're paying less attention to kind of some of those red flags. So you want to be super cautious of anything that kind of feels off. When in doubt, try and reach out to a recruiter from that company that you know is actually at that company. One of the things on LinkedIn that you can do now is you can actually verify your workplace. And I imagine that a lot of recruiters have verified their workplaces. And so you can find a recruiter, and most would be happy to help look up if you're actually in the interviewing pipeline and have the ability to see that. But definitely, like, if something's too good to be true, it unfortunately is usually not real. Let's see. Ooh, I like this one. I've been a data scientist for almost 7 years, but I still Google pandas and NumPy functions several times a day. Why? Remembering intricate functions is helpful, but if they were applied 0.1% of your workflow, they're not worth retaining. Time is better spent in understanding practical techniques like data cleaning, feature selection, feature engineering, modeling, and evaluation. So the takeaway, don't overly optimize your skills. Think about the big picture of what you are aiming to achieve with data science and invest in growing the skills that are worth it. So very much so. One of the things that people don't get and feel really insecure about is that they don't feel like they can solve 100% of problems without like Googling them. And the thing is that like as a software engineer, we do that all the time. And the key is just to make sure that you know how to break down the problems, that you know the skills that you can't just type into a Google search and get an answer for. But the actual like functions, that's not that helpful to have 100%. So definitely don't stress out about not remembering 110% of syntax because most of us do not. So I have one post that I think captures, unfortunately, what a lot of people feel right now within the tech industry. And this person writes, I have never seen a job market this difficult. I have done more interviews than I can even count over the last several months. I have seen posts here from people who have been out of work for almost a year now that were in my field. I know some very smart individuals who are out of work right now, and it is confusing why they have not been picked up yet. I hope things turn around for all of us. I don't like seeing this many people out of work. So first of all, none of us like seeing this many people out of work. It's really hard to be on LinkedIn and see so many people who have been laid off, who don't have a job, things like that. Like that's really hard emotionally to see. And that is nothing in comparison to all the people actually experiencing that. And my hearts go out to them. One thing that I do think is really important is to make sure that it's easy to kind of get caught up in just applying, because you feel like you're doing something. You feel like you're potentially going to make progress. But if you're not making progress, change tactics, because clearly applying isn't working.